There's a hidden rule in relationships that most people never see. Energy flows toward emptiness. When an empath hasn't healed yet, they're like a river with no boundaries, always pouring themselves into others, trying to fill a hole they've never faced in themselves. And the narcissist? They can sense that emptiness the way a predator smells blood. They don't come to love, they come to feed. Before they wake up, empaths love like they're begging to be noticed. They give everything, thinking that if they love hard enough, they can change someone, that their gentleness can calm the storm, that if they're just kind enough, the other person will finally learn to love them back. But their love isn't returned, it's absorbed, drained, twisted. And when they collapse, they think they failed. The truth? That collapse is actually the beginning. It's an ancient ritual the soul has to go through to learn the difference between real empathy and slowly erasing yourself. When the empath finally stops trying to save everyone else and turns inward to heal themselves, something incredible happens. All that energy the narcissist was feeding on their attention, their compassion, their reaction starts pulling back to the center. The empath no longer needs to be loved. They start becoming love itself. They stop reacting, stop proving themselves, stop asking for permission to be understood. They choose silence, and in that silence, everything reverses. The energy that used to flow outward comes back home. The narcissist's ego feels the void, the absence of the supply that kept them going. They panic, they rage, and then they come back. Not because they miss you, but because they miss the power they had when you weren't whole yet. They mistake your light for their lifeline, but now that light belongs to you, and they can't touch it anymore. That's when the game ends. Not through violence or revenge, but through the simple law of energy. Whoever controls themselves controls everything. When the empath heals, they don't just escape the narcissist. They force the narcissist to look at their own darkness. This isn't a love story. It's a story about energy reversing, the price of manipulation, and the quiet power of waking up. Because when an empath truly heals, they stop chasing anyone, and the universe starts chasing them. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and share it with other people. Now, let's continue. Part 1. The sickness of needing to be loved. There's no deeper pain than feeling like you need other people to love you just to prove you deserve to exist. This is the invisible sickness most empaths carry, a soul raised where love was something you earned, not something you just got for being alive. From childhood, they learned to read other people's moods before they ever got to express their own. They became the kid who listened for every shift in tone, who watched every look to figure out if they'd be loved or rejected that day. Slowly, they lost the line between who they actually are and who others needed them to be. As adults, they bring this pattern into their relationships. They're drawn to cold, wounded, emotionally shut down people because deep down, they're seeing the unhealed parts of themselves. They mistake intensity for fate, chaos for love. They believe if they're kind enough, patient enough, forgiving enough, the other person will eventually love them back. But here's the truth. In those relationships, they're not really loving the other person. They're trying to love the abandoned child inside themselves. Jung called this projection we see in others the parts of ourselves we can't face. The empath projects the image of that distant parent onto the narcissist and unconsciously believes that if they can get this person to change, they can rewrite their history. But love can't heal a wound born from fear. It can only recreate it in a new shape. Only when the empath hits rock bottom, when they're too exhausted to keep saving others, does real awakening begin. They stop asking, "Why did they hurt me?" and start asking, "Why did I let this keep happening?" They realize the problem was never the narcissist. It was their own belief that they needed to be chosen to feel like enough. Jung called this stage the nigredo, the blackening of the soul, where all illusions collapse, leaving one naked truth. No one can love me the right way if I'm still refusing to love myself. From the moment they stop running, the energy shifts. They stop leaking emotions through endless explanations. They stop looking for validation in someone else's eyes. Instead, they turn inward, learning to sit with fear, with loneliness, with their truest self. And in that deep silence, they discover that love was never something to beg for. It's the natural state of the soul when fear isn't in control anymore. When the empath heals this sickness of needing to be loved, they stop loving from emptiness. They love as an act of creation. They can give without losing themselves, sit in silence without feeling abandoned, and walk away without guilt. Their love becomes sovereign, a light that's no longer a resource for others to drain. And that's when the narcissist starts to panic, because the very power that fed them the empath's need to be needed is gone. The empath isn't a river with no banks anymore. They become an ocean, ordered, deep, still, and impossible to control. Part 2. The energy reversal from lacking to enough. When the empath heals this need to be loved, something invisible but absolute shifts. Before, they were an open door, absorbing everyone's emotions as if it were their sacred duty. They thought unlimited kindness proved love, that endurance meant depth. But really, they were living in reaction, not awareness. They weren't choosing love, they were compelled to love to fill the void created by their fear of abandonment. And that void acted like a magnet, pulling in people who feed on emotional energy, narcissists, and others who don't know how to sustain themselves yet. Awakening starts the moment the empath stops broadcasting the signal, "I am lacking." Every time they stop reacting, every time they say no instead of going along, every time they choose silence instead of explaining, they get a piece of their energy back, like sealing cracks in the soul. They start to feel their own weight, not through other people's eyes, but through their own steady presence. Jung called this the withdrawal of libido, when your life force stops flowing outward, searching for love, and returns inward to feed your consciousness. They stop panicking when someone pulls away. They stop trembling when they're ignored. Their silence becomes a mirror where the narcissist sees their own emptiness. And here's the irony: when the empath stops needing, the narcissist starts needing. This is the reversal the universe executes perfectly. When you chase, you give your power away. When you stop, the energy comes home. The empath used to think love meant limitless sacrifice. Now they understand that giving while losing yourself isn't love, it's a transaction born from fear. They start to feel their boundaries as sacred, a circle of consciousness where everything they give comes from intention, not desperation. For the narcissist, this shift is an existential crisis. Their whole identity depends on controlling their reactions. When you're silent, not crying, not explaining, not defending, their system loses its power source. That's when they get most desperate. They try to reignite the old emotional charge. Messages, memories, guilt trips, playing victim, even pretending to change. But the empath has transformed. They don't wobble anymore because they understand something deep. Peace isn't protected by words, but by awareness. This inner fullness carries spiritual meaning too. When the empath reaches this state of enough, they don't need to prove anything, win anything, or resolve anything through conversation. They know their silence has already spoken. They understand the narcissist's real pain isn't losing them, it's losing control over them. And on a deeper level, they learn the greatest lesson. True love isn't merging. It's staying yourself while keeping your heart open. Part 3. The narcissist's collapse. When the empath heals and pulls all their energy out of the game, the narcissist falls into chaos they can't explain. In their world, power and existence are tied to making you react. Every tear you cried, every time you tried to prove yourself, every justification that left your mouth that was proof to them that they still had control. But now, when you don't react, when your energy is still, they don't feel alive anymore. Your silence isn't space to them. It's a death sentence. This collapse happens in layers, like a system losing power in the dark. The first layer is denial. They tell themselves, "She'll come back. He's just testing me." The narcissist always believes they hold the upper hand. They're used to people orbiting them. When you disappear from that field, their mind can't accept it. Like an actor performing for a full audience, suddenly having to act in an empty room, they lose their sense of direction. After denial comes panic. They check their phone constantly, secretly stalk you online, ask mutual friends about you, and manufacture accidental run-ins. But that's not love. It's withdrawal. For the narcissist, other people's emotions are the strongest drug. When they lose that supply, they go through actual withdrawal, restless, angry, sleepless, swinging between self-hatred and grandiosity. Sometimes they immediately find someone new to fill the void, another person to mirror them, cling to, continue the game with. But no matter how many new people they find, the emptiness doesn't shrink, because the energy they're addicted to doesn't lie in those people. It lies in your life force, something they can't produce on their own. The next stage is the ego collapse, when all their old tactics stop working. The guilt trips, the blame shifting, the crying, the threats, the seduction. They're forced to face what they fear most, themselves. In the darkness of their inner world, echoes they've avoided their whole life start to sound. The sound of emptiness, self-disgust, the shattering of the perfect image they built. And because they never learned to sit with real feelings, this collapse feels like free falling into nothing. Many narcissists try to escape. They throw themselves into work, sex addiction, alcohol, religious extremism, or fake spiritual enlightenment. But nothing can cover the feeling of losing control over the energy you once provided. Jung said this is when the shadow rises. When you stop holding their negative energy for them, all the darkness they repressed surges into consciousness. They start experiencing exactly what they used to inflict. The feeling of being ignored, dismissed, seen through. The universe doesn't punish them, it just restores balance. Before, they lived off the reflected emotions of others. Now all they have left is their true image, empty, unbelieved, unheard. That's a psychological hell no insult could rival. Some narcissists, confronted with this void, choose self-destruction. They ruin relationships, wreck their reputation, and sink into despair. Others start chasing. They can't stand losing your signal. They text, apologize, repent, and even play enlightened. They talk about change, karma, and soul connections. But it's all a desperate attempt to reignite the old reaction to prove they still have influence. They don't want you, they want your reaction. For the awakened empath, this return doesn't make them tremble anymore. They see clearly what's beneath the apologies. They feel the emptiness in every message. They understand that love isn't healing someone who refuses to heal themselves. Instead of falling back into the old loop, they choose silence. They let the narcissist face their own shadow, not out of hatred, but knowing that no one can wake up as long as someone else is shielding them from consequences. This is the real energy reversal. The empath doesn't need revenge. Their peace is the highest form of judgment. And the narcissist, abandoned in the emptiness of their ego, slowly realizes what they've denied their whole life. They were never truly strong. Their power only existed as long as others believed in it. When you stop believing, the entire fake kingdom collapses. And from those ashes, the universe does its fairest work, forcing them to see the raw truth of who they are, while your light, once available to them, now remains only a distant memory they'll never touch again. Part 4. When the narcissist starts chasing, the energy reversal doesn't just make the narcissist collapse. It drives them mad with the loss of power. When they realize they can't control your emotions anymore, obsession begins. They don't see you as a person anymore, but as a cut-off energy source, something they have to reclaim at all costs. That's when the chase begins. But here's the paradox. The one being chased isn't on the same level anymore. In this phase, the narcissist gets desperately creative. They replay old scripts with new costumes. Some play the victim, sending messages about illness, loss, even talking about karma or spiritual awakening like a confession. Others use indirect tactics, mutual friends, social media, and accidental encounters to re-trigger your attention. Some take the opposite approach, showing off success, happiness, being desired by many, just to stir your curiosity or make you feel inadequate. All their actions have one goal: to make you respond emotionally. But now you're not shaken. Your calm becomes a new language they can't understand. The narcissist is used to intensity, to explanations, and fights. They live in drama, so they can't grasp someone who just stands still and sees through everything. When you don't react, you become a perfectly flat mirror, one where they're forced to look at themselves. And what they see isn't power anymore. It's empty. Psychologically, this is a reverse reflection. Before, you were the mirror reflecting their emotions. Now they're forced to mirror back the very fears they ran from. I am abandoned. I am not enough. I am not seen. All of it rises from their subconscious. They cling to you not because they love you, but because you're the last witness to their illusion of self. When you step out, they don't just lose a person. They lose the version of themselves that was reflected through you. So they chase energy, not a human being. They feel inexplicably pulled toward you even when logic says don't. They type messages and delete them, watch your stories and pretend it's accidental, even pray for you to return. But really, they're trying to resurrect the old field, the place where they used to feel valuable. Your silence unsettles them so deeply they'll do anything to make you react. Because with just one reaction, anger or pity, they can feel they still exist. For the healed empath, this is the final test. Not falling into the trap of misplaced compassion. Because pity is the doorway, their energy can be pulled back through. Instead of returning to help or save, you simply remain as the observer. You understand that everything they're displaying is just an abandoned child in an adult's body, desperate for attention, terrified of truth. Instead of getting angry or sentimental, you look with the eyes of someone who's grown up. I see you, but I don't belong to your game anymore. Energetically, when you hold a stable frequency, its field collapses on its own. Darkness can only exist when there's light to reflect it. Without reflection, it dissolves back into its own nothingness. That's why, after enough time without a reaction, the narcissist loses the energetic connection, falls into depression, or rushes to find new supply. But no matter how many new mirrors they find, they never forget you. Not because of love, but because you're the only one they couldn't manipulate anymore. For you, this isn't victory in the ego sense. It's the completion of a karmic cycle. In the narcissist's desperate pursuit, they finally see the greatest lesson. No one truly wins. No one truly loses. Energy simply returns to where it belongs. And when that happens, you no longer fear abandonment because you understand. The one who used to run from the dark must eventually become their own light. And the one who lived off borrowed light will forever be haunted by it. That's when the game truly ends. Not through revenge, not through hatred, but through absolute awakening. Because when you're genuinely healed, you don't need to prove anything. You simply walk away, and your footsteps become a bell ringing through the night, calling other souls still running in the dark to finally wake up. Part 5. After healing, the power of peace. After everything, you don't become a tougher version of yourself, you become a clearer one. You don't fight darkness anymore because you understand. What keeps darkness alive isn't evil, it's ignorance. And that understanding frees you from all the power games you were once trapped in. You don't need to resist or prove anything anymore because now you know one simple but profound truth. Peace is the highest form of power. Before, you tied your worth to other people's reactions. Now you tie it to the depth of your inner stillness. You don't seek love as a reward anymore. You live as if you already are love. The way you speak, walk, and show up in the world carries different energy, one that doesn't demand, doesn't cling, doesn't compete. It's the kind of energy that makes unhealed souls feel both drawn to it and afraid of it, because they can't touch it and they can't control it. You don't run from your emotions anymore. You can feel sadness without falling into despair, see darkness without losing faith. You become an inner observer, witnessing every movement of the mind without being fused to it. This is what Jung called individuation, the process of the soul returning to its center, where ego and shadow are reconciled, where light and suffering aren't enemies but two poles of the same current. At this point, You don't need to defeat the narcissist because you've risen above winning and losing. You don't see the one who hurt you as an enemy, but as a karmic teacher, someone who unconsciously helped you see the split-off parts of yourself. Instead of hatred, you feel gratitude, not for the pain, but for the awakening the pain brought. You understand that without darkness, your light would have stayed just a theory. Your love changes nature too. It's not a thirst to be reciprocated anymore, but a field of free energy. When you love someone now, you don't cling, don't fear losing, don't need to hold on. You understand every soul has its own path, and true love doesn't need possession to feel complete. You love with respect, with freedom, with awareness, and it's precisely that lack of demand that makes your love more powerful than any declaration. Energetically, you're no longer a supply for anyone. You become your own source. The energy that used to leak outward now circulates within, moving like a self-sustaining current. Your magnetism doesn't lie in appearance, voice, or gentleness anymore, but in your frequency of awareness. Anyone who steps into your field feels something hard to name, both illuminated and exposed, because real light always makes the darkness in others tremble. This is exactly why, on a deeper level, the narcissist begins to fear the very person they once controlled. Not because of anything you do, but because you don't emit the frequency of fear or dependence anymore, the two energies that fed their ego. Standing before you, they feel seen through. Every tactic, every promise, every performance becomes meaningless. They feel exposed, like standing before a perfectly honest mirror, where there's no room for illusion. You don't need to pay back karma or get revenge. You just live in truth. And truth by itself has more destructive power than any rage. Because while they're still struggling to maintain an image, you've returned to essence. While they run from the void, you sit down, breathe, and find God in that very emptiness. This is the highest form of freedom. Freedom from needing to be understood, to be loved, to be chosen. And the paradox is, when you stop needing, everything begins to come to you. You attract kindred souls, people also living in the frequency of peace. No one tries to change anyone. No one plays savior or victim. There's just presence, listening, and love without tragedy. You don't become a saint. You become real, able to feel anger, sadness, tenderness, but not ruled by any of it. And it's exactly this balance that makes you quietly radiant. You don't need to shine to be seen because you've become the light. And for the narcissist, nothing is more frightening than someone they can't touch, can't stir, can't shake. Because true light doesn't need to prove itself. It simply exists, and everything false falls away on its own. When peace becomes the new karma, after moving through pursuit and entering complete stillness, you realize something profound. Peace isn't just a reward, it's a spiritual responsibility. Because once you've dissolved fear, you become a mirror where other souls can see the unhealed darkness in themselves. Your peace isn't avoidance of conflict, it's ordered energy, the kind that forces chaos to reveal its true nature. When this happens, the universe begins to move around you with a different rhythm. All old relationships built on fear, power, or dependence gradually fall away. No drama, no fights. They just dissolve like frequencies that aren't in sync anymore. This isn't a loss, it's the natural purification of energy. You don't run from the past. You just don't belong to it anymore. Those who once caused you pain start to fade from your awareness, as if the universe is clearing the path for a new phase, the phase of resonance instead of rescue. When you live in the frequency of enough, you attract different souls. Not people who need fixing, but people who are also awakening. These connections feel completely different. No drama, no control, no patience tests. Everything unfolds so gently that at first it feels strange, because after years of chaotic love, peace can look like a lack of feeling. But gradually you realize, this is what real love is. Love not as a storm, but as the sky after the storm. Not as thunder, but as the warm breath of presence. Spiritually, This is when you enter the soul's rebirth cycle. You've passed through the lower layers of karma, where love is a game of lack, where kindness is mistaken for weakness, and now you function at a higher level, where love is a reflection of consciousness. When you love now, you don't lose energy, because your love doesn't come from an ego wanting to control, but from a soul wanting to share. Every word you speak, every glance, every gesture becomes a vehicle transmitting conscious energy. You impact the world differently. Not loudly, not by persuading or teaching, but simply through your presence. You make people around you turn inward and examine themselves. Your energy doesn't move restlessly, it radiates quietly. You walk into a room, and the atmosphere naturally softens. You speak less, but your words carry the weight of someone who's walked through both darkness and light. You don't perform goodness. You let it emanate like the scent of a flower that doesn't try to bloom. For the narcissist, this presence becomes reflective karma. Because you don't hate them anymore, don't wish them harm, but simply see them as an unripe aspect of humanity. And it's precisely this non-judging gaze that makes them feel more exposed than ever. No longer being hated, they're also no longer special in someone's anger. They fall into a space where no one fights them, no one reacts, no one fears them. In that emptiness, they're forced to hear the echo of their own voice. It's the gentlest yet deepest form of punishment the universe can offer. As for you, you don't seek joy in finally getting justice. Your joy comes from seeing order return to the world. You understand everyone's at a different stage of awakening. You don't need to save anyone, but you don't close your heart either. You just live in a state of witnessing, where loving and letting go aren't in conflict anymore. This is when you truly become an anonymous healer, not through techniques or teachings, but through energy. Your peace spreads like underground water, quiet, but strong enough to soften the hardened soil where darkness once settled. And the world, even without knowing it, begins to change because of your presence. You don't say, "I forgive you" anymore. You simply live in a state where there's nothing left to forgive, because you understand everything that happened was just roles in a larger play, where both souls are learning to remember who they are. And when you understand this, you don't need to be acknowledged, repaid, or loved back. You only need to be present in your true nature, true frequency, true light. That's the final sign of healing, when peace isn't a fleeting emotion anymore but becomes a new karmic force, the very thing the universe uses to rewrite the entire trajectory of the soul. And from that moment on, you don't search for love anymore, because you've become love in human form. Welcome to Empire of the Mind. If this is your first time on this channel, please subscribe to this channel for more self-awakening and deep psychological content for self-development.